Happy Moonday, witches. My name is Zoe. I'm a lunar witch, and today we are going into the magic of the week ahead, August 24th to the 30th. What can we expect out of the moon's energy? What can we expect magically, emotionally, intuitively? And this is a good week to pay attention to these things, to this energy, because we do have a lunar eclipse this week. So we're going to get all into it. But I want to talk about, first and foremost, jumping straight in, what we can expect from the moon phases and what the moon phases represent, because this will give you a better understanding of what the energetic layout of the week is. So we start with a waxing moon, we go into that lunar eclipse, and then we go into a waning moon. And so there's this energy of, traditionally like waxing moons, a waxing gibbous is about building up energy, is about momentum. Full moons traditionally are about like illumination. It could even be manifestation, recognizing what you've accomplished or what has been built so far. And then it can lead into the releasing, what's not serving you at that point. And then a waning gibbous can be about, releasing energy, slowing down, doing that reflections post manifestation of like, okay, what may need to be removed next in order to get to that next chapter and next thing. But because we have a lunar eclipse this week, it kind of changes the energy of all of these phases, because now instead of building up to our traditional manifestation this week that we can expect around a full moon, because it's an eclipse, it's actually like building up to some sort of transformation, building up towards some type of like big release. It could be like a faded, exiting of something, or like just a major trajectory change. And so usually in eclipse seasons, more people experience a realization of what's not serving you. And it feels like it's kind of beyond your control in some ways. Like it was just meant to happen. It's something that's been almost like, building up over time, like a waxing gibbous of like, this thing is no longer avoidable. It's just not meant to be in your life, or this perspective is meant to be like really highlighted. So that just being kind of like the surface level explanation of this week, I think it's helpful to understand, because like when we are in eclipse season, it changes those traditional meanings. We start Monday all the way through Wednesday with that waxing gibbous. So it's this building up of energy to get us to acknowledge something. You may notice themes from Monday to Wednesday of refining plans, staying patient, adjusting goals. You may be really identifying what's not really making sense for you in your journey right now. Each of us individually will have things that are kind of on our radar that we've been focusing on. Maybe it's even as simple as like self-development. And you may notice Monday to Wednesday that there's something coming to the surface that you're like, this keeps popping up. Maybe you keep dreaming about it. Maybe a key word keeps coming to you. Maybe it's just a feeling you have, but you're like, this is coming through for a reason. And with that energy, it's interesting because Monday, the moon is in Capricorn. It goes into Aquarius Tuesday, Wednesday. But both Capricorn and Aquarius are Saturn ruled signs. And so they have this like similarity of in like the zodiac being these like outlier signs, because Saturn was later discovered in traditional astrology. And so with these signs kind of being assigned to and ruled over a planet that was later discovered, and a planet that is known to teach many like very significant lessons, that might be the theme emotionally for the beginning of this week. You might feel like things within your own inner orbit that maybe you didn't identify or have been sitting around have maybe just been kind of like a misfit that's been casted over to the side, is now coming in and is like, hey, I need you to look at me. I need to be integrated, and you're actually going to have to kind of find some sort of structure for me and include me in any decisions you're making or anything that you're kind of reflecting on. Because, Capricorn specifically is about that discipline, structure, and kind of preparation. It's that acknowledgement of like what needs to happen right now in your journey. And when we move to Aquarius, it is a sign that's known for being very like, I would say independent. I don't want to say avoidant, because that's more of like the shadow side of Aquarius, but it is very independent, and it can be hyper independent. So it's important to recognize any perspectives you're having or anything you're trying to create that you are kind of like maybe self-isolating, and that can be highlighted. So it's like as things are building building up to like what is supposed to be looked at right now in my life. We are starting with Capricorn and Aquarius telling us, hey, let's look beyond like a surface level. Let's really dive deep and look at the things we've been avoiding, if this is making sense. Now, Thursday is when we transition from that waxing gibbous into the full moon that will lead into the lunar eclipse. So it's going from that Aquarius energy into Pisces. It's going into the sign of Pisces. And so we're very much switching from this more like very independent, very structured energy into this very emotional energy, this very intuitive territory. And so that's where it's really prepping us for, on Friday, the lunar eclipse, where it is in Pisces. So this full moon lunar eclipse energy is not only asking us to think about the fated releases that may need to be happening, the things we might need to surrender into, but there's also this highlight on a bit of illusion, because with Pisces comes imagination, right? But when it comes to releasing, it might be things that in our imagination, things that we're thinking of, perspectives that have turned a little bit delusional, I want to say, or things that we might have to admit harsh truths to ourselves. And each of us will be different. This energy might not be like full force smack in the face for everybody. For some it will be, but it just might be one of those things where it's like, it's come to the surface. There's something I can no longer play into. There's something I can no longer like not admit to myself. It's no longer, I mean, think of how poetic this week is with the Capricorn and Aquarius signs within the moon going into Pisces. It's like these outliers coming in to admit something to us that we now know, and then switching into our emotions. We bring that and root it into our perspectives, and we're like, okay, like I can't pretend that's not there. I can't pretend this thought process or this thing isn't in my orbit. I have to acknowledge it, and I have to have the bravery to surrender and release it. And lunar eclipses are commonly recognized as that. It can be a time of deep shadow work. It can be like working through some things where it's like, it's really time to let this thing go. This chapter is completed. Like, this is a time to really lean into, like, here's my opportunity to just release. And this can lead into trajectory shifts. It could be within truly anything. Take what resonates, use your discernment, use your intuition. But what is that prominent theme? Can you take time this week to identify it? Because that will tell you where you're needing to detour, where you're needing that trajectory change, what in your life is actually requiring you to go through this kind of metamorphosis, which when we look at butterflies, we see that that's not a super easy transition from caterpillar to butterfly, but it's necessary and it's worth it. And so it's not seeing this lunar eclipse as something that's like dreadful. This week isn't anything to be scared of, but there's definitely some discomfort that will most likely come up for a lot of us in what we need to surrender truly to get to the next chapter. So after all that, Saturday, the 29th, we then go into the waning gibbous within the sign of Pisces. And so this is, again, just really kind of allowing us to slow down and settle in whatever that realization was, still within the sign of Pisces of like, let me work on that perspective shifting. Let me work on any type of illusions or delusion that's not serving me, and just do that letting go. Do some journaling. And kind of like all regards this week, I personally wouldn't promote doing any like manifestation work, to each their own, not telling you what to do, but I really think this is a week I would take to just reflect. And it's similar to last week, because last week, the last 2 weeks have been a part of this eclipse season. We started with the solar eclipse. And so it's just like a time to really just allow things to play out and to observe. Journaling's great. Shadow work is great. Be patient in this clearing the slate for future manifestation. Lean into this time that really can help you purge the things that need to purge. Because if you think of yourself as a cup that is full of water, we have to create room and release the water that's not serving us in order to welcome in the water we prefer. And then Sunday the 30th, we are still in that waning gibbous, but it shifts into the sign of Aries, which is a more fiery, passionate energy. But there is still this promotion, because we look at waning gibbous as, you know, representing releasing energy. It could be sharing wisdom of what you've had to release. It could be like putting that action of what we released, putting what we release into action, I should say, by leaning into that Aries energy of like, I'm really gonna like maybe share what you've released, or really put pen to paper and really execute that. Maybe just really move the energy of what I'm releasing, maybe support that somehow. And because Aries is such an energy of action, independence, and progress, I think there's this perspective shift we can kind of quickly shift into Sunday, only 2 days post eclipse, where it's like you kind of see the reasoning and might receive clarity of like, oh, I see why that needs to be released. I'm starting to understand why this is a blockage. And that can start to ignite a spark within you emotionally, where you're like, I see what my path is being led towards. It's still the long game. It's playing the long game, but you start to have that spark of understanding of like why this is happening collectively for all of us, what the benefit's going to be, how it's going to benefit you in the long run. And so it might be a little bit of a bittersweet moment, depending on what it is you're experiencing this week, depending on what you identify as the theme, the thing, the perspective, whatever it is that has to be released that isn't serving you. It might be bittersweet, but you might see come Sunday that you find an understanding of why it has to happen. So that is the week of August 24th to the 30th. I now want to switch into our collective reading for the week ahead. So just getting some clarity, some wisdom, some advice that can really help guide this collective this week. All right, we've got the King of Swords coming through, the Six of Swords, the Eight of Swords, and the Four of Wands. Do you see this swords energy? It is very clear that this is a week of perspective shifts, air sign energy, our internal world. So this is really highlighting that Aquarius energy. You know, this is really highlighting, honestly, every single thing this week, the eclipse, it even fits into the Capricorn. It's just these outlier things coming through of what we have to admit to ourselves, the delusion, the illusions that we have to identify and work through. And this, the Four of Wands, very much giving the Sunday Aries energy. So we'll get to that, but it's really symbolizing this week and how we can view it. There is this King of Swords energy asking us to really sit in our center, to really use discernment around what is or is not serving you, to be honest with yourself, to be almost like authoritative with yourself within your mind, within your perspective. And of course, like this is air sign. It is about like our thought processes, our internal world. But there's the swords. The swords represent sometimes the things we have to cut off, the things that we really have to cut through in order to come to greater clarity. And there is this energy of both, Six of Swords. What can you take with you that is benefiting you while leaving the rest? What is important to you? What thought processes are beneficial to you? What perspectives are actually leading you towards the version of yourself, the version of your life that you desire, that actually fit the person you've become? And anything else cannot come on board with you because it's taking up space that is meant to be replaced with better. And so this week is such like a collective energy of like, let's just get the dirty work done. Let's get the shadow work done and just really, clean up house, clean out the closet, whatever you want to metaphorically think of it as, but like, let's drop the dead weight. And with the Eight of Swords, it is this energy of like some of these things you may have been avoidant of walking away from for a while. There may be emotional attachments or maybe just a comfortability of this thing being in your orbit for so long that it's kind of like you feel like it's a part of your inner solar system, but it's time to realize that it's not. You are meant for more, and only you can unshackle yourself or open yourself up to the truth to see that, to sit on the throne, to see all that is before you and be like, what actually serves me? And I keep saying that in many different ways, but it's just true. It's something that we really have to root ourselves in and understand in order to walk away from what's not serving us. It's admitting, okay, how much have I, convinced myself maybe coming into that Pisces kind of like illusion energy? What have I convinced myself that I'm stuck with, or I've convinced myself I'm only good enough for, that if I actually displace that and challenge that, I could find that I'm worth more and that I can step away from and it doesn't have a hold on me. With that, doing that shadow work, allowing ourselves to be brave in our endeavor of embracing these faded trajectory shifts, these faded releasing moments, we come to the Four of Wands. It's like a great release, a sigh of release after doing the hard work. This is perfectly reflecting that Aries Sunday post-reflection energy of that understanding why these things happened, why it had to be this way. But it's going to be worth it. And an example that's coming to mind is like, say that like you've been really struggling to cut off someone that you've truly outgrown. And this is someone that keeps disappointing you. And this is someone that is not admitting any type of fault. They're not caring about you enough to say, hey, I'm sorry I hurt you. Above all else, above my ego, I'm sorry I hurt you. I don't even care to try to justify it. I care about you. And you've centered a person that can't do that. You've centered a person or let's call them a friend. You've centered this friend in your life that is showing up and exhausting you and taking from your energy without ever caring about how they impact you. And it's that attachment of like that past you have with that person, the good times you have with that person, but realizing they don't fit the direction that you're trying to head in anymore. And you don't have the space and energy to keep being there for them or to keep allowing them to disappoint you, to hurt you when they are not doing anything to match where you're at, to match an energy of care, of community. And you having to sit within yourself and admit that this is the blockage. This is the thing that's kind of holding me back from this next chapter. And it can be really difficult to go through things like that, right? But it's saying like when you do the proper releasing of what you know isn't serving you, and using this example of like you finally release that person, you wish them well, you wish them no ill will, but you're like, I have to move on. I have to move on for me. It's just not meant to go forward. That's where you reach that Four of Wands energy. It's when we're brave enough to release the things that we're like, it just doesn't serve me anymore. It just doesn't fit me anymore. I'm different. It's dragging me down. And that's a release that opens you up to something you were asking for. And it can be related or non-related, but sticking with the example, you end up finding that community member that can truly have the hard conversations with you, that can truly consider you, that can be just a valuable asset to community in your life. And you can only get there by releasing what's not serving you, the one who isn't. And so apply that to where it makes sense in your life. But that's the collective wisdom, the message coming through of like, hey, we got to face the truths and we've got to release so we can make room for better. So I actually want to pull an oracle card as well. Just one more message to sum up the week ahead, August 24th through the 30th. Okay, we got the Horned God. This is life force. I'm going to read a little bit out of the booklet here. So the vibration of this card is represented in the root chakra. Keywords are inhibitions, life force, and joy. It says, if the Horned God appears, your desires may be out of balance. You may be feeling the need to seek more genuine joy and deeper connectedness in your life by freeing emotions and inhibitions. But life is not always about having a good time. Be responsible and committed too. The Horned God reminds us that we need to give thanks for what we receive to celebrate our life. If you are stressed or unwell, he indicates that you may need this time to be natural, to be yourself. If it seems that your life is not your own, reintegrate yourself with those who support and affirm who you would like to be. Let go. The high note of this card is fun and celebration are indicated. The low note is find what makes you truly happy. And so I really like that this card comes through and taking the message symbolically, I feel like it really represents how everything in our life has an energy to it. And the Horned God represents life force energy, right? And we have to think about the way that the things around us are influencing how we feel, as well as what we desire to cultivate more of in our life and how we're choosing to show up to obtain that. All in all, to sum up this week, to sum up this message, it's a good idea to do a little shadow work, to lean into the support of the energies that be to help you clear what's just ready to go, what is no longer serving you. And know that this season too shall pass, and we will come around a bend where we are able to apply action and intention to the things we want to manifest in our lives, that we will grow into a new version of ourselves, because like nature, we are cyclical. We go through phases. We will come back to a phase where it's time to grow again, where it's time to reap the rewards of the hard work we're doing. But right now we are in a season where we got to do the work. We got to do the work that is necessary in order to get there. And so don't overwhelm yourself this week, but just lean into reflection, lean into truth. I was actually doing a tarot reading for myself this morning, and a message came through. I actually closed my journal because I was done writing, but it came through as soon as I closed my journal, where it said, I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be true. And that really resonated with me in my own personal journey right now, and just like centering truth more than perfection, centering how I feel more than what's pretty, centering just like what is over what I want it to be. Because the more that we stand in truth, the more that we lean into truth, and we just admit how we're feeling about things, we admit what is happening right now in our lives, that's where we can come to clarity and open up room for intuition on how to navigate those things, if that makes sense and if that resonates with you. Just thought I'd share. Thank you, witches, for being here. I really appreciate you tuning in, for listening to these Moonday readings. If you haven't already, be sure to follow me on YouTube and Spotify. Every Monday, I post a Moonday reading for the week ahead, getting a look at the moon phases, the energy, and how we can work with it. If you are a witch looking for more community, looking for resources on witchcraft, on self-care, on inner exploration, I do have an online coven, the Scarlet Rose Coven, and this is a space for witches to come together, to express themselves, to find community. We gather every month, once a month, diving into different topics within witchcraft, doing sacred practices, self-care, spell work. You also gain access to our group chat, where you can talk to your fellow Scarlet Sister members. And you also gain access to the Scarlet Rose Library, which is full of resources to explore on your own time, guided meditations, online video courses, workbooks, ebooks, spells, and rituals. Just a really magical space to deepen your practice, to find community. If that interests you, if that resonates with you, go to link in bio, click the Covenants tab, and I'll see you there. Much love, witches.